Hey guys, so I posted something very brief a couple days ago on Twitter about how I was going to do a follow-up video to 6 months sobriety, and because I felt it would kind of be, I don't know, dishonest is the word to use, but it would feel kind of like slighting anyone listening if I didn't follow up, for good or bad. So I guess that, this is what that is. This is and it's a positive message. I hit a year. Of course it was difficult early on, as I said in the initial video, but you know, as time gets on, the substance itself becomes less of an issue. And it's just more about, just trying to get your bearings again as a person. And I feel like, for anybody living, obviously the media we reach out to or, find ourselves in is always a good crutch and a good way to, really find yourself as a person, try to identify your morals, just your interests. It doesn't have to be heavy stuff, but especially when you're going through a process like this, you tend to latch on to that heavy stuff. And I know that when I first started, when I was days in, I saw Infinite Jest, which is a hilarious book, but also a very dark book. It's a lot of heavy hitting topics about family and, of course, addiction. So it's kind of funny, like, that was what I reached out to because it's kind of inappropriate for some people, I would imagine. But I really, found strength in the dark humor of it. And as time went on, I've been making my way through Stephen King's The Dark Tower. And without really giving spoilers or having you required to have read it to understand what I'm getting at, as I'm now, over a year sober, there's two of the main characters have a very conflicting existence about a very heavy and hard choice that they've made. And once you make that choice, you can't exist. Nothing goes back to normal once that choice is made. But these two characters are very much aware of their lives before and after this choice and how it affects the other. And I find that that's a really strong metaphor for, just looking back and trying to improve myself now, that, you can't take away pain that you've done to people, to yourself, to your loved ones, to anyone, but you can't ignore it either. But that doesn't have to necessarily be an anchor to you. That's, you can live, it can sometimes feel like you're living that dual existence, that, the weight, the burden of stupid shit you've done and positions you've put yourself in. But you also have that knowledge that you don't have to do that anymore, and the foresight now that you don't have to recreate those situations. So, even though it's about split timelines and world-ending consequences in a fictional story, I really found strength in that you don't have to let your past weigh you down, but you can only try to improve on a continual basis. And at the same time, to also keep myself in check, I have to understand that for most people, for anybody who never struggled with any sort of addiction or never put themselves into that position, that this was just getting back to square one. Like, as supportive as my social groups have been, the people who love me have been, and they have been, I have to remind myself that that work was just getting me back to a baseline existence, to a baseline of being a half decent person, and that's also empowering to me. And I'm just really thankful and fortunate to have that chance and not to squander it, and to see where it goes from here. So yeah, it's been over a year, and there hasn't been any difficulties related to a substance in a long time, and that's fucking awesome. And the poet in me wants to say that one day in April over a year ago, I drowned myself for the last time. And as stubborn as I can be, I don't foresee that ever happening again.